Welcome back to series 2, episode 10 already of the Passionate Pioneer podcast. And today, my guest is SERYNA MYERS. Hi, SERYNA.
Hello.
And as you know, of course, I'm your passionate pioneer. My name is Beth. My motto is empowered women, empowered lives. Let's design your life fueled by passion and purpose. And this podcast is your space to listen, be inspired, be motivated, and break free from limitations to design the life that you deserve, which is fabulous. And
how juicy is that?
I know, it's lovely, right? So let me introduce SERYNA to you. So forget the distant guru stereotype, because SERYNA is a sacred transformation mentor with over 25 years of intuitive experience. She walks alongside women worldwide as they face their inner shadows and helps them to break free from limiting beliefs. Her spiritual life mastery coaching, trademarked, goes beyond mere transformation. Get ready for spiritual work that's both profound and delightfully playful. Well, isn't that nice?
It doesn't have to be hard.
Right? Yeah. Profound and playful. I like that combination, SERYNA.
Yeah, I think when you're doing things, especially with shadow work, like it has a tendency to be harder, heavier stuff. But I think that we can actually explore those places with a little bit of levity, which doesn't mean it's not serious work. It still is very deep and very serious. But we also get to have it be really nourishing and lovely, actually, a lot of the time. So it can be both.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when you say shadow work, can you tell our viewers, can you just expand on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so a lot of what I do is shadow alchemy. And this is when we are looking at the darker aspects of who we are and the things that we carry. So, you know, in some spiritual teachers refer to it as like the ego. Sometimes it is like the inner critic, the negative voices that you have. It's also the culmination of like our conditioning, the things that we've seen and heard and process and believe to be true, but maybe aren't. And they are the parts of us that hold us back. They're the parts of us that keep us small. They're the parts of us that are afraid to make those leaps into our passion and our purpose. And when we can actually create a little bit of separation where we don't actually own that aspect and say, this is me, we can say, okay, wait a minute, this is an aspect of me and it has something to teach. It has something that needs to be healed. It has work for me to do here. Then we can start to actually integrate that part of us so that it becomes almost like a trusted advisor rather than this part that we either hold ourselves back with or that we want to try to like distance ourselves and abandon.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I totally agree. That's amazing. Yeah, I call it the layers of onions. I'm like, I've had to peel off loads of layers of onions. I've also referred to it as heavy coats.
Yes, it absolutely feels like that. And they're
Right.
hot and they're stifling and
Yeah.
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 I know with mine, I first started to notice it. This was like early in my spiritual journey where it was just critical of everything, like myself, the people around me. And I had this like moment of riding a bus, and there was a woman standing in front of me who had what I can only describe as the world's ugliest scrunchie in her hair. And it was before scrunchies came back. And somehow I had this recognition of myself going, oh my God, look at that scrunchie. And just like, like criticizing it. And then somewhere this kind of higher part of me witnessed this and went, why do you care? Who is she hurting with her scrunchie? And that moment, that one little recognition was sort of like the branch of my path, because then I could see it as being a separate part of me that, you know, was definitely narrating and contributing to my life, but was not actually me and was not actually truth. And once I could see that, I started seeing how it was playing out in all these other aspects of my life. And something as simple as a scrunchie became this huge turning point for my entire path.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that turning point, isn't it? So let me ask you, you talked about the spiritual path. This was the start. So what was the spark? What happened for you to go on this? I'm guessing is the journey of discovery.
Yeah. So the scrunchy part happened at the same kind of time in my life where I was realizing just how dissatisfied I was with the life that I was living. And I accidentally found my spiritual path because I treated it like it was an intellectual exercise. It was something to like figure out. And I found myself with an opportunity to work with a shaman and ayahuasca. And if people aren't familiar with that, it's a tea that is brewed from plants in the Amazon that takes you into a journey within yourself. And I saw it as a tool to, tap into my subconscious. I really thought it was like a psychological exercise, but it's a spiritual exercise because when you're in ceremony, you're communing with the divine. And I had no idea. So I went in there thinking I was just going to figure myself out. And I did, but not in the way that I expected. And it completely cracked me open. And I started to realize just how much needed to shift and change in my life. And the divine sort of kept interfering to get me along the way because I still had a lot of that fear that was keeping me stuck in these patterns and ways of being.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's that you said the divine kept nudging you along, and it is those what I call spiritual turning points, pivot points, major things that happen in our life that just keep nudging us in a different direction. It's that little voice that says, why don't you go and do that? Where did that come from? What do you mean? Right? Why do you care about this woman's scrunchie? What do you mean? What's going on? Right?
And yet
It's
it made an
those little
impression.
moments, isn't it?
Yeah. That moment was, oh my goodness, like almost 20 years ago now. And I still remember it so vividly because it was one of those things where it was like, SERYNA, this is a moment. This is a milestone in your path that you're going to need to refer back to. This was the moment where the separation happened, where were no longer the same anymore because you could recognize that that critic wasn't actually you. And it seems like like a lot of those times, these really significant moments are these tiny little things, these little moments that we could miss if it wasn't for the divine, like putting on the spotlight saying like, nope, this is significant. You need to remember this.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, and we have, you said you wanted to remember that one. I remember there are quite a few of those moments I've had where the universe has nudged me, um, you know, kicked me up the arse basically and
Mhm.
said, oi, you know, you've got, what are you doing here? You're going in, going in a different, and I tell you what, in my 20s, I had them, my 30s, I had another one, my 40s, I had another one, they're all very different,
Mhm.
SERYNA, all different situations, but all a pivot and a spiritual turning point, all of them were different types of trauma or moments where I've suddenly gone, hello, you know,
Well, this is where I think that the idea of it needing to be hard, like I think when we are really clinging to old ways of being that we've outgrown, and that will continuously happen for us throughout our lives, right? Especially
yeah,
when we're
yeah.
doing inner work. When the divine is giving gentle nudges and we're not answering the call, the nudges get louder and they get harder and they get more dramatic. But the more we can like build that relationship with the divine, the more that we can build in that trust in our own knowing of, okay, wait a minute, this is a nudge. They don't have to get loud. It doesn't have to get hard and dramatic. And so I find that I do get more nudges now, whereas they used to be massive kicks in the ass. And
Right.
now it can just be like when my clairaudience was waking up, I would wake up to a piercing screaming in my ear every day at 3 a.m. and I could not go back to sleep. So it was like starting my spiritual practice at 3 a.m. every day. And I think I went about 6 weeks straight of like complete sleep deprivation, of me crying and begging, like, please make it stop or please make it easy. But like, whatever it is, it cannot go like this. I'm tired and I'm losing my mind.
Right.
And now I get like just a little like, hey, remember this thing that you're supposed to do? And I'll go, yes, let's do that now so that you don't wake me up at 3 a.m. and make it really painful and uncomfortable.
Well,
So we do.
that's incredible because I've had something similar, and
Yeah.
I thought I was losing my mind at the same as you, SERYNA. Mine wasn't the piercing sound. Mine was many spirits talking to me at the same time, many of them. And it was absolutely killing me. It was, you know, I couldn't decipher who was who. It was like I opened something, because I said, okay, I'm open to whatever, and you have to be very careful, you know. So I actually said, you know, I'm open now. It's the start of my spiritual journey. I'm open and I'm ready to, you know. No, I was not ready for that. Because I didn't hear the screaming sound, but I did hear many voices. They kept bombarding me, and I just had to. It took me, the same as you, it took me weeks to take control, months actually, to take control, and for me to be in control, and me say, okay, one at a time. And then I had to decide who they were, because I've had different types of, I've got a team. I always say I work alone, but I have a team, a spirit team that works with me. And I don't talk about them very often, because it's not necessary to talk about them, because they work for me and the highest good of me and the highest good of my clients. They don't necessarily need to bring messages through. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they just guide me with the client. Sometimes they just guide me in my life. But it took me a long time to understand that, and to have that kind of control back of, okay, one at a time, take a ticket and get in line.
Yeah. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of people think that that's what they want. They're like, I want to hear the messages. I want my guides to come through. And like, yes, you do. And you don't want to make it a free for all. Like, you do want to have tools and practices and boundaries and ways of being able to work with spirit, so that you're not just, you know, like you can be open for business without. Yes, exactly. Like, I remember, naive time. My wife was going through the loss of her father, and I said to my guides, use me, whatever you need, like whatever she needs, use me to help her through this process. Whew. Like, the amount of stuff I was having to transmute, because she does not do this work. This is not like her world at all. So now I process grief. Yeah, grief and pain and loss and all of these things. And it was not my work to do. It was not my work to carry, but I signed up for it because I was naive, thinking I could help. But, you know, we really do need to have those boundaries, so that we can support the people that we love, and we can use our gifts, but we don't burn out doing it. We don't do it at our own like energetic cost.
Yeah, we certainly don't do it at 3 o'clock in the morning.
And not at 3. You know what's so funny? So last month, or April, I guess it's 2 months ago now, I lost my grandma. And in the years, you know, leading up to this moment, we would have these conversations about, because she knew I trained as a medium, and we would have these conversations. And I said, okay, Nanny, here are the rules for engaging with me when you're on the other side. And so it was like, you don't wake me up in the middle of the night. You don't catch me in the shower. You don't spook me. All these different little things where I was like, otherwise, let's talk. Let's hang out. Let's have a cup of tea. Anything you want, we're good. But if you do any of these things, you get booted out of the house until I'm awake. Like, that's just the way it works. And it was so funny to then like have her, not funny to have her cross over, but have her cross over and know. And she is so respectful. Like, I've never been able to preemptively give these guidelines to somebody, and I never feel caught out with her. I can just like commune with her in these really beautiful ways. And it's never, you know, when I'm buck naked in the shower.
God, we have so many things in common, right? I love this when I start talking to my guests. You know, you're amazing, because there are so many things that that cross over. Like my grandmother, as soon as she passed over, started talking to me immediately. And I realized when I went on a regression journey, I did the regression therapy. And I realized that we'd lived many lives together, when I didn't realize that before. Beautiful. But I always was very close to her in life. And so immediately when she passed over, she's a very old soul. And I guess that I'm pretty much matching her as an old soul. So, you know, but we've lived many lives together. So as soon as she went over, she knows, oh, I'm home, right? I know exactly where I am. She didn't need the, you know, the time to get used to and adjust, right? She just knew immediately. And so she came to me. And in fact, was it yesterday? What day is it? So it's Thursday today, Wednesday. When Wednesday, early morning, Wednesday, 3 o'clock, I woke up. It was 17 minutes past 3 in the morning, the witching hour. I know it's that.
Mhm.
And she woke me up because she had a message. She said, Beth, you're not connecting with us. And that's true. I've been really busy and I've not been connecting with them. Beth, I need to talk to you. There's somebody here that needs to talk to you. And you need to, first of all, well done, blah, 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 blah. I said, yeah, because I was like, oh my God, it's 20 past 3 in the morning, right? So I'm like, you got to make it quick and don't bring the whole pack with you. I just, I can't do it.
It's just you and me.
I can't do it. Just tell me what you need, make it fast. I'm so sorry I haven't connected with you, but tell me what it is. And so she had this conversation with me. Well, obviously my eyes weren't open. And I was like, okay, great. Is that it? Finished? And then someone else came to talk to me. It was about 5 minutes, maybe maximum 10 minutes. And then I was like, okay, that's it, finished, went back to sleep. But when you don't connect with them, you see, that's what I'm sure you get the same, SERYNA, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is why I feel like the consistency of our, whether the practice is once a week, once a day, whatever it is, the consistency is the part that's the most important, because that's when we are sort of contractually open to be able to have that relationship with the other side. And when we don't honor that contract, they come knocking at 3 in the morning.
They do, right? And I was just like, I can't believe it. It's like, look at them, like, it's 20 past 3 in the morning. Oh my God. Okay, what do you want? Anyway, and then I know that's my fault. That's my fault because I've not been in touch.
Yeah. And you know what? I had a consistent practice. Consistency was my big struggle for many, many years, like the majority of my spiritual journey. And last year I was part of a ceremony that was a massive initiation. And my guides were like, it's time to get off the fence. Like, you're either doing this or you're not doing this, but like, it's go time. So what's your choice here? This is sort of like my crossroads. And I said, okay, I'm in. And so I stuck to my consistent practice every single day. I think I made it like 275 days, like almost a full year. And this was with losing my grandma and with travel and all these things. And I still stuck to my practice. And then one day I woke up and I went, oh shit, I didn't do it yesterday. And I had a little bit of grief because I had invested so much time in this. And I really felt like I did my part. They told me, like, they called me out. I showed up, like, and I haven't actually had a consistent practice since. So we're now at about like a 6 or 8 week mark where I'm still like tuning in regularly, but I'm not showing up, meditating, journaling, and everything the way that I had been. And I think that some of that is also, I needed to give myself permission for that practice to be different. And I just don't know what it's going to look like yet. And I think we can sometimes get a little rigid in like, okay, yes, I need to be consistent. I'm going to show up in this way, but then that way stops working for us. And so we need something like forgetting to do it one day, or we need a 3 a.m. wake up or something to kind of nudge us to say, okay, that chapter is done. And yes, I want to show up differently and I'm ready for it to look like something else now.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so I was like you, and I went on I was all in, and I was doing it every day. Then, things changed, and, and recently I've been trying to I'm doing a 5-day free experience, all the foundational blocks from my passion program. And it's for, as we talked about previously, I was helping 40-year-olds, now I'm helping the 30-year-olds because they're coming to me and asking questions. So I've been really busy putting this challenge together, this event together, and so I really haven't spoken to them probably for about a month, and from my regular. So I think it was just like, okay, we just need to talk, and 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, okay, no problem, we'll have a chat tomorrow. But I got the information I needed, and I was just like, okay, we'll just have a chat tomorrow. But and I do like that, and you are correct. It's not, some things are not sustainable. I mean, you can't do that every morning. I did for a long time, the same as you, and then things changed in my life, and I did it maybe once a week. When I could. Sometimes I didn't do it in the morning. I'd do it in the afternoon when I got time. It doesn't matter.
As long as
But I
you're doing
haven't
it
done
out
it for
loud.
about a month, and obviously this was important information, and maybe I promised them I would, and I didn't. And
You know,
that's
it's
why
funny
they
that we're
came
having
back to
a conversation during the new moon. So if someone is hearing this going, you know what, I actually always did plan to start something, and use this as your invitation, because the new moon is the perfect energy for a new habit, a new pattern, a new beginning.
Yeah,
And so if you're hearing this, if you're watching this interview and you're just like, yeah, I was thinking maybe I'd start something, start it today, like literally today. Do it imperfectly. Like if you're feeling the
yeah.
call, like answer it. There's a reason why that nudge is there.
Yeah, I like that. Imperfect action, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Imperfect action. There's no such word as perfect. We're never going to be the perfect time. We're not perfect. We are humans. We're not.
Perfect as a distraction.
Yes.
Yeah. And I feel like it's a really good strategy of the shadow, to come back to what we were talking about at the start.
Right.
Because so long as we can keep ourselves on this quest of like continually trying to self-improve, continually trying to make sure that, you know, things are perfect before we put ourselves out there or before we take a risk or whatever, we will never actually take that step forward. We will always be distracted by the quest for perfection.
Yeah.
So imperfect action is like pretty brave, to let it be messy and let it be ugly.
Yeah.
Like it's not hurting anybody. It's just the ugly scrunchie in the world that is going to be someone's pivotal moment.
Right. So let me ask you, SERYNA, what role models or mentors have you had on this spiritual journey as a life coach?
That's a really great question. I have done a lot of learning from Brene Brown. She is one of my favorite teachers.
Right.
I did her Dare to Lead program as well. Um, I love her philosophy, particularly around vulnerability and authenticity. Authenticity has been like just such a big word for me and my values for a really long time. And realizing that vulnerability is the key to being able to be our truest self. She was a really, really big teacher for me. I also have some teachers that I can't even fully articulate what it is about them, but I feel so deeply. And so Malala is a huge one for me. There's something about Malala that bursts my heart open every time I see her or hear her in the news or anything. Her courage, her bravery, her conviction and her commitment to truth and to what's right and what's principled. And it's funny because neither of these are particularly like spiritual teachers, but
Mhm.
they have been massive guides for me, because I feel like how we do one thing is how we do all things. And so if we're looking at things like vulnerability and bravery, we can bring that into our spiritual practice, and it can actually deepen our connection to ourselves. And yeah, I've had different coaches and mentors. Worked with healers and shamans, and they've all played really big parts in my life in different ways. Sometimes it's also been in teaching me things that I went, that's not true for me, but there's still medicine in that, right? And being able to claim what is true for you is
Right.
also medicine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like I am the culmination of a lot of really random teachings, including like coming from a Catholic background in my childhood,
Right.
you know, to be able to integrate all of that and be like standing in this sort of mishmash way of living, but it is so pure and so true for me that it doesn't really matter that the sources are so buried.
Yeah, exactly. Standing in your truth. Yeah, I like that. The same. I came from a Christian background, but we left the church when I was in my late teens, and in fact, it wasn't a great experience. Excuse me, it wasn't a great experience because I found out that the church wasn't all that. And it was supposed to be this great community support for my parents, and I was really sad for them more than I was sad for myself when we left. But then I went through the motions of, okay, do I believe in God? If this church represents God, that's not very good. You know, who are these people, right? Aren't we supposed to be just love and support? We didn't get that. You know, and all of these thoughts, and you know, it was a process for me of going through from the church to questioning, then being an atheist, and then coming out of that and then finding my own way. And in fact, it's the same as you, really. My teachers and my mentors and my coaches have all come from different places. But again, all aligned. I think once you're on that path, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. It's exactly the right quote, isn't it, SERYNA? And I know you
Absolutely,
said
yeah.
some of them were maybe you didn't feel aligned to, maybe some of the things, but some of the things you did and some of the things you didn't.
And I think there's something really powerful, because I think it's very easy for us to defer our power to our teachers, to our leaders, which is why I talk a lot, even in my bio, about how, like, I'm walking alongside you. We are not in a hierarchy here. We are side by side.
Right,
I'm in the mud walking alongside you. Like, that's really important for me,
right.
because when we have this deferral of our power, we are self-abandoning. And so long as, if we're hearing, a teaching that, someone that we trust is declaring as truth, and when we receive it, we go like, "Ooh, that is not true for me." If we have to then decide that it is true because they said so, that's self-abandonment.
Right.
And I had a lot of healing I had to do with this. But I remember sitting in a retreat where the teacher, I think we were about maybe 40 people in the room, and the teacher mentioned that he didn't believe in like soul agreements. He didn't believe that we choose our parents. He thought that it was all random, and that, you know, you learn from whatever hand you're dealt.
Yeah,
And the entire room completely lost it. And
yeah,
there was myself and my two friends, and we both kind of sat back being really amused, because they had deferred their power to him so much that when he presented them with something that wasn't true for them, the discomfort was so high that they had to try to convince him that they were right and that he was
right,
wrong.
right,
Whereas I was okay to be like, well, that's one way of looking at it. It's not right for me, but that's okay. And, I
right.
think that we need to be in that place where we can learn from our sources, and, like, yes, that's super important, but where we don't then self-abandon because we take their truth over our own. And that's, I feel like
Interesting.
a lot of times, especially in a lot of
Mhm.
spiritual teachings and especially when it's communities and circles, there is a hierarchy, and that self-abandonment happens more often, and it's so subtle, and it's these little micro moments that we don't even realize it until we've completely lost ourselves.
Yeah, we have come away from the gurus, haven't we? Of oh, this way is the right way. Follow me. This is just definitely the right way. And I'm sure we both follow the same kind of principles in our coaching. Is that we don't have the answers.
No, they
We're
have the
there to
answers.
we're there to help you discover the answers step by step, to uncover the answers. And what's true for you is not necessarily true for me.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
can ask questions that will
yeah,
help them find answers within themselves.
yeah,
I can reflect things back. I can even say, can I share, like, my perspective on this? And then
yeah,
they can then receive that and decide whether that's true for them or not.
yeah,
But I
exactly.
will never, ever, ever decide that my way is the one way, because my way is constantly changing. How can it be the only way?
Well,
Honestly.
that's the only constant we have in life, is the change is the only constant, right? That we're always
Totally.
changing and evolving and hopefully improving, as practice does not make perfect.
Mhm.
Practice makes improvement. So we're always trying to improve and um so let me ask you about the biggest leap of faith that you took
Mm.
going into following your spiritual dreams.
You know what? It wasn't even specifically about my spiritual dreams, the biggest leap of faith I took. But it was definitely one of those moments that brought me to where I am right now, because, oh my gosh, my life would have been very different otherwise. So I had a very tumultuous childhood. I lived in a house where there was crime, there was poverty, addiction, the whole shebang. It was an unpleasant place to be.
Mm,
And I had confessed to my grandmother, actually, at one point, that I was really depressed. I was in a dark night of the soul. I didn't have the language for it then, but I said, if I was to not be here tomorrow, you're the only one who would miss me. That's how I had seen it. I was like 17
right.
at the time. And within 2 weeks, I was whisked off across the country to live with my aunt and uncle. And I lasted 5 months because I didn't know how to be parented. I didn't know how to be supported. I didn't know how to be loved. And I ran away and I went back. And as soon as the plane landed, I went, oh no, that was a mistake. So here I am, 17 years old, deciding I'm going to find my way back out west. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but this is what it's going to be. I had $500, thinking that was a lot of money, and a bus ticket. And I took a Greyhound from Ontario back to BC. So pretty much, 2/3 of the second largest country in the world,
Yep.
on the Greyhound bus. And thinking I'm prepared with my $500. Well, wouldn't you know it, that within 2 weeks of me moving out, there was a huge police raid on our house. And I wasn't there, but if I had been there, I would have been literally holding the bag with everything that would have gotten me arrested, that would have gotten me a criminal record, that would have completely changed the entire trajectory of my life.
Right.
And it was one of those things where I didn't know why, and I certainly didn't have the language for it because I didn't understand how deeply guided and protected I had been through so many different times in my life.
Right.
But there was something in that, when I look back at it, where I go, 2 weeks. 2 weeks is not a lot of time. And
Right.
it would have changed everything. It would have kept me from starting the career that I have. It would have kept me from being able to travel to meet my wife who lived in the UK, because I would have had a criminal record and not been able to get a passport. Like
Oh
all
gosh,
these
your
different
wife
things.
your wife is English. I didn't know that.
She
Okay.
is,
Okay.
yeah. So all these different things where like, and even just like traveling and the experiences that I've had, like being in Mexico, where I have felt like the most beautiful in my entire life, I would never have been able to experience these little glimmers of magic,
Yeah.
because I would have been like my whole life would have been completely different. And I
Right.
know that there are people who, have like criminal backgrounds and then have these like comeback stories where they heal their stuff and they create other lives. And maybe that could have been me too. But like, I mean, who can say at this point, but I look at that moment and I go like, wow, like getting on that bus was probably the biggest gift I ever gave myself.
Right.
And I had no idea like just how much that leap actually meant.
Yeah, that's part of your story, isn't it? And I like that. I love
Mhm.
that part of your story, that's, the background story. Yeah, mine was, was going to, well, there was no internet in my day, and realizing that I wanted something more. There had to be something more, and I didn't know really what it was. And a friend of mine who I hadn't seen for a long time showed up and said she was working on the cruise ships. And I was like, what's that? And I went to the library to research, and I found all these newspaper articles that have just been released on ding-a-ling-a-ling-ling-ling, right? The alarm bells start going off, and it's just like all the signs are pointing here, right? It's just there's something, right? And I've never been to the library before. I've never been to the library since. I just went to the library that one time,
Wow.
and that was and there were all of these interviews with people and had worked on ships, and where could I work and how to get hold of people, all of the signs, and off I went. So it is, you get that moment, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
And where
about
did that take
following.
you with the
Oh,
ship?
it took me on the cruise ship. So the first one I went, I flew to Florida, from London to Florida. I'd never been abroad, and I literally, it was 2 weeks before Christmas, 1996, and and I was literally standing at the airport in London with my mum and dad, and I started crying, and I said, "Oh God, I'm making a I don't know what I'm doing here." And my mum said, and my dad's just like, mum, and both of them actually, they just said, just go and see, and if you don't like it, come back. And I thought, that's good advice. So we're all
Mm-hmm.
crying. Anyway, I go to Florida. I can't speak. I'm in Florida. I'm in a hotel that's everybody speaking Spanish. I don't speak any Spanish. I don't know what the hell's going on. And and then it's pinned on the board which ship you're joining and your name. And I saw that, and I went to the cruise ships, and it was the time, it was the 90s, and I realized that I was arriving with 2 suitcases, and one was my clothes, and one was all my my other baggage, because I couldn't take any problems on board. I just had to go and do it and get on with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's the way I describe it. So I really arrived with one bag, but I did have an invisible bag, which was everything else, right?
Yeah.
And all my trepidations and fear and all the rest of it, right? Yeah, it was amazing. And I lost it after the first 2 weeks. I think I had a mental breakdown, and then I said, right, get yourself together and get on with it.
Yeah. But
And then I
imagine
started
too.
having a great experience.
Imagine too, though, like if you hadn't taken that first step, like
Yeah.
the great experiences wouldn't have been possible. The change, like we need to step out of our routines and our little bubbles a
Yeah.
little bit. And I know
Yeah.
like right now I'm still recovering from my COVID bubble. I really locked down for a number of years. And then I moved partway through and I've lived here for 2.5 years and I don't know anybody. I'm in this city where I barely know my neighbors. And I'm now having to like rebuild that because I made the big leap of moving to the island, but then I didn't actually talk to anyone. So how do you make that home, right? So we kind of get stuck in our ways of being sometimes, and we need to actually we need to get on the plane. We need to join the thing. We need to try something different. Even if it's like a new food, like we just have to
Yeah.
push
Yeah.
our edges a little bit so that we have the opportunity for these little miracles and this little magic to like break through into our lives. Otherwise,
And of
we're just
course,
shielded up.
we took big risks. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as we did,
Yeah.
take leaving home and getting on a bus and just, at the age of 17 I was in my early 20s, going and flying to Florida and, joining the cruise ships, it's like running away to the circus, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that drastic, right? Just the little
Trying a
steps,
new
like you said,
coffee
just,
shop.
yeah, try a new
Like
coffee shop, go to
you
the
don't know
next
who you're going to
village,
meet
go and
there.
see go to the next town, get on a bus and see where it takes you, right? Round the town, round the city, right? And just get off and explore somewhere new. It's
I think we do a lot. I mean, I think it's part of it is because we're a really overstimulated society, but we do so much of our life on autopilot. Like think about the number of times people will drive home and they don't remember the route they
oh yeah,
took from home
yeah,
because they do the same thing all day every day,
yeah.
right? And we get stuck in these little ruts and we get even when it's uncomfortable, the familiar part of it is comfortable. And so we just kind of get acclimatized and then we start to actually kind of stifle the opportunity for the divine to bring miracles our way. Like we really need to just open up a little bit so that we can receive new experiences, so we can find new people, so we can try new things. And you're right, it doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be these little moments. It could be just even taking a different route home from work one day, but
Yeah,
experimenting with it and letting life like delight you in ways that you couldn't have expected or foreseen.
yeah, yeah. Well, like you, I moved in 2021. I moved to Italy from Spain. So I was living on the other side of the world after traveling and all the rest of it. Then I moved back to Europe, lived in Spain for some years, and I now live in Italy. And actually, I live on top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere, so I've got hardly any neighbours. I've got a few farming neighbours,
How
but
is
I've
that?
I've I've basically created my my community online. But my partner is Italian, so between her family and the and the neighbors, I'm getting to know more people now after a few years of the same as you, like sitting here going, my community's online, I'm just doing everything online. But we really do need those personal interactions, don't we, SERYNA?
I mean, I think some of us do. I forgot how much I love people. And I'm actually energized by them. I was like, oh, I turned into a little bit of a curmudgeon during the
Right.
pandemic. I don't think I realized how much I really love them. And last week I went to a networking dinner for the first time in
Nice.
far, 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 far too many years. And
Right.
I came home and I was like, I felt like a bit of an awkward penguin, but it was great. Like I loved meeting new people and it was wonderful. So, yeah, I think we just
Yeah.
need to be willing to be in the discomfort of being awkward penguins once in a while and just, try something different. Stretch out of what we know to be familiar, especially when we have that feeling of is this as good as it gets? Or this is really great, but I think it could be even better. Like if we have any inkling that things are not exactly how we want them, then we need to continue to experiment and allow opportunities to find us that would grow that into something else.
Well, the thing is, that's it, isn't it? It is, the familiar is very comfortable.
Mhm.
And it's people don't like to get uncomfortable, they just like to sit and complain.
Mhm.
And, and they'd rather just be miserable in in the same space because they're
Mhm.
too frightened. It's the fear of going to another place. And
Well, I
like you
think it's
said, it
also the
doesn't,
fear of who they would have to be to do that thing. Because sometimes they
right.
go, well, that's just how I am. Well, that's just the way it is. And that is, again, a deferral of our power. Because if we truly believe that, we don't have to make changes. We don't have to try anything different. We just have to accept that it's going to kind of suck and it doesn't have to suck.
Yeah. And as Mel Robbins says, no one's coming to save you.
Yeah,
No one's
sadly.
coming to save you. If you want to do something, you've got to do it. You've got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
or you find somebody to help you to do that support network, you know, somebody, some friends, or a Facebook group, an online group, a community locally that you know, somebody that is going to cheer you on and be in your corner and say, you can do it, go on.
And someone who truly believes that and isn't trying to make you into something else. I think being able to be met where we are is so important, because we are not, you know, inherently flawed. We're just on this journey to
Yeah,
try something, you know, new. And we need people who aren't trying to turn us into cookie cutter versions of them, who can
right,
see our own goodness, our own potential, and
right.
help us to see that too, if it feels a little bit too far away at any given time.
Yeah,
We want
yeah. It's
champions.
just,
They want to
well,
champion us.
you do need, that's what I was trying to say. It's just, you just need a champion in your corner, right? Because
Yeah.
normally, you know, your family, they, you know, and your friends, they want to keep you safe.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to keep you safe in the bubble. They don't want you to go and try anything, because that means that where are you going? You know, you're leaving me, and you know, you're not pleasing me anymore,
Yeah.
right?
And I don't think they do it intentionally,
No, not at
selfishly,
all.
but it does happen to be selfish because
This
they're
is,
afraid of their own growth.
of course. So
Yeah.
when you start, you know, you want to make those changes, you might find some people are on your side, in your corner, and some people aren't, because
Mm-hmm.
they're afraid of their own growth, and you know, and what you're doing is scary for them. It's like, well, I want to do that, and they don't. Maybe they're a little jealous too. I don't want, you know,
Mm-hmm.
where are you going? I want to do that too,
Yeah.
right?
But what about me? Am I not good enough
Right,
anymore?
right. Well,
You know what I mean? Well,
yeah,
you're just going to leave me behind. And
right,
and I mean, to be honest, sometimes we do have to leave them behind. Like, there are some
absolutely,
relationships that do change, and there are some relationships that do end as we grow.
yeah,
And we have to not be afraid of that either, if we know what is actually if we're in full trust of what is in our highest good. But sometimes it's also like you can still have them in your world, and it's just loving them where they are and reassuring them that things aren't changing between you just because you
yeah,
are personally changing.
right.
And each relationship is different, but I feel like honesty and transparency are super important. And also having relationships where it's safe for us to be honest and transparent about where we're at and where we're going.
Cool. Yeah. So, what are you most proud of accomplishing on your journey so far?
Oh my goodness. This is actually something my therapist pointed out literally last week that I didn't even realize was something that I do. Um, she said that Gabor Mate was talking about how if someone has to choose between belonging and authenticity, they will choose belonging every time. And I don't. And sometimes it's wildly uncomfortable. I will choose what is true for me more than having to sacrifice who I am in order to fit in or belong. And it is a hard thing to do, especially when like the belonging you don't even have is with your own family. It has meant the end of some relationships. It
Yeah,
has sometimes been incredibly lonely, but I am now at a place where I no longer self-abandon, where I no longer put somebody else's needs or comfort or desire above my own. And that I can do that and view it as a really empowered thing and not a selfish thing,
right,
which I wasn't able to do before.
right.
And is it scary sometimes? Absolutely. It was scary most times, actually. But the discomfort that I have of conforming is far less than the discomfort I have of abandoning myself.
Oh my God, I couldn't have said it better, SERYNA. That's exactly how I feel. You know, I don't like to conform. I've never enjoyed conforming, and that's exactly what my family did. They all conformed, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't. And I've always been, you know, the black sheep of the family. And I tell you what, one of them said to me, "Why can't you just be normal?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "What's your version of normal?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of, because in my life I don't see normal, and we didn't come here to be normal. We didn't come here to be ordinary. We came here to be extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And if you
We
ever
came
call
here
me
to be
normal
true.
again, I'm going to slap you silly."
You know what's so funny about normal? Normal and perfect are very similar because it's a standard that is constantly changing depending on what circle you're in.
Right?
And if we make that our North Star, if that's the thing that we are always pursuing, we will always come up lacking, because no
Yeah.
matter where we are, it's going to shift and change.
Yeah.
So why be normal when you can be true?
Exactly. Authenticity is definitely, you know, if I can't be me, it's one of the reasons why I went to travel, because I wanted to find me, and I wanted to unravel the onion and take off the layers of clothes, of jackets, of other people's opinions and feelings and all the expectations, right?
I love that.
So, you know, yeah, and I managed to do that, and I will, once that box is open, I'm never going back, I can tell you.
You can't.
No,
It's the thing that once you can see it, you can't unsee it.
can't
It would
unsee.
be too hard and too painful
Oh
to
yeah.
try to then put the layers back on. You just can't do it.
I'm not putting those jackets back on. They're gone. They're done. They're burnt. I've burnt them. So tell me, how do you define success in the
I feel like
context of your dreams and goals?
Yeah. So for me, success, like for me personally, because I believe we all have to define it for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, it is having the ability to say yes to the things that call to me. So it means I have the time, I have the money, I have the flexibility in my schedule, and I have the support to make things happen that feel right for me. That it's not a dollar in the bank account. It's not, different milestones. It's not, the spouse, the house, the 2.5 kids. Like that has never been success for me. But
Right.
in the last, particularly since the pandemic, when everything kind of like burnt to the ground and we got to kind of see this whole new world,
Right.
I was like, what do I want to create for myself? And I
Right.
want to create the ability to say yes to the things that call to me.
Yes, the culmination of lots of things, right? To follow your joy, follow your bliss,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes it's not even joy and bliss. Sometimes it's like, one of the things was I lost a family member a number of years ago, and I was able to drop everything and go and fly on a last minute ticket and stay in a
Right.
hotel and be a support and a pillar. And like that was definitely not bliss, but that was for my heart really, really good. That is like the person I want to be, is the person who has the ability to drop everything and show up for the people I love.
Yes.
And
Yeah. And I think what I meant was that, maybe I didn't say it properly. I didn't put it into context, was to when you're following what you love, obviously, which you're doing, which we're both doing, it comes with benefits. And the
yeah.
benefits are, it's not always, we don't do it for the money. We
Oh,
follow
for
what we
sure.
love. If I've got to have that, if I'm not happy, I can't make anybody else happy. I've got to have that
100%.
in my life first,
Yeah.
right? And then all the other things sort of fall into place. And you're right, it's not about the money, although it comes.
The money helps. Like
Yeah. Yeah. The money
it's
has to
easy
give
to
us
say.
freedom. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like it really does afford us the opportunities to do the things that we want to do. But
Right.
it can't be the be all and end all, because again, much like normal, much like perfection, what is enough money? Like
Yeah,
that is
exactly.
always changing, right?
Yeah.
So, we can't really, I feel like the only thing that we can really have as our North Star, as the thing that we are constantly working towards, um, has to be the pursuit of our truth, of our purpose, of our wholeness. That can really be the only thing that is the constant for us, because pursuing anything else is just a distraction from this.
Right. So what's the most unexpected benefit you've gained from pursuing this journey?
Hmm. It's going to be like a really weird answer to that question. Um, I have been able to unlock old trauma that I didn't have access to before, so that it could be healed. And it was things that when I sat in my very first ceremony, I asked a question that I didn't get the answer to until so I sat in my first ceremony November of 2008, and I got the answer in December of 2020. And I
Why?
was so mad. I was so mad, but my guide sat down and said, like, you could not have seen this then. You weren't ready.
Weren't
It would
ready.
have broken you. So to be able to have this new level of healing that I wasn't able to have like capacity for, has been really wonderful. And now I get to use that capacity instead of it being for healing and for recovering from trauma. I get to use that capacity to experience joy and to even figure out what that's like. And that is, it's a whole new relationship with energy, with my body, with myself. And it sounds like a backhanded benefit, but it really truly has been, because that's something that was still lingering in the shadow and it was still taking control every so often. And now it's not there anymore. And that's pretty incredible.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
How about you?
Oh gosh. How many benefits? Definitely with my spiritual team, I think you were talking about healing, but I've had archangels whisked me off in meditations for personal healings, and I think I just think that's incredible for me to have that personal, literally personal, hands-on, that you can't explain to anybody else. It's not like I went to a spa and got it done here. I suddenly had
Pretty unrelatable.
right. I had a meditation and I got this amazing healing twice actually, which was incredible. And I think just the unexpected benefits for me have been this incredible supportive spiritual team that started with my grandmother, and then another soul called Ophelia, who was an Egyptian guide, and the two of them were my main feminine guides. And then I have other guides as well, including spirit animals, and my team is amazing. So we talked about the connections earlier with humans, and and I live on the mountain on my own, but I have conversations every day, or I was. Now it's a little different. Now I'm in a relationship. Now it's everything's changed, and I have an outside life, in-person life now. But when I didn't, I had this, and I still have this amazing team that got my back, and I can go to them at any given point. And if they've got something important to tell me, they'll wait. They'll tell me at 3 o'clock in the morning. But it's we do have that strong connection, and I think that's the one major benefit for me that actually also helps my clients. It helps my friends. They help my family. Inadvertently.
I think that's something people don't realize too, is that when we do that work for ourselves, whether it's fostering our gifts, whether it's our own healing or whatever, even our own power reclamation, the ripple effect that has, because people get to experience us being true to ourselves. People get to witness that truth in action, and they know that it's possible because they're seeing someone else do it, which means if she can do it, I can do it.
Right.
And then also like all the lives that then touches, because this light bulb goes off, then this one, then this one. This is like the Marianne Williamson quote about, when we shine our light, we give other people permission to do the same.
Right.
And I think that that's been kind of the coolest thing with like the rise of spirituality and the new age that's been happening. I saw it. I mean, it's had spikes over the years, but particularly since COVID, I know a lot of people opened up during that time.
Yeah.
Those are a lot more lights. And then those lights are going to then be other lights. And it just keeps going until, and like, frankly, the world needs a lot of light right now. So the more of us who can be doing this work, the more of us who can be living our truth and our purpose, the more that we are healing the collective. And that is a pretty incredible place to be.
Well, that's exactly what I was just going to say. So you just took the words out of my mouth, because there
Sorry
was,
about that.
we heal. No, absolutely not. I think that's fantastic. That when we heal ourselves, we heal generations, we heal ancestral wounds, we heal the collective conscious, we heal. It has a knock-on effect, doesn't it? And it brings more light.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So what's one lasting message you want to leave our audience with today?
Okay, so the thing that just dropped in is, you are too good not to know. So in this work of you finding and claiming and owning yourself, like not only do you get to know that, but then everyone else gets to know the truth and the juiciness and the beautifulness that is you. So you are too good not to know. So we need to just do that work of shining a little brighter, of being more of ourselves and bringing all of us to the table.
Wow, fantastic. Great,
Yay.
great ending. Great ending. A million thanks to SERYNA for joining us today. Thanks to our audience for hanging out with us. We hope you found it inspiring and empowering. And for more information on how to work with us, I'll leave SERYNA's information obviously on Spotify. It will also be on YouTube. And if you'd like some more information on how to join my free 5-day event, Passion, we start in July, and I'd love to see you there. So from us to you for now, we're saying bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.